Welcome to this special explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're going to dive into something pretty wild. We're looking at how pure chance, sheer luck, and honestly, completely bizarre accidents have led to some of the most paradigm-shifting discoveries in all of human history. We spend so much time and money methodically searching for answers to our past. But sometimes history just accidentally trips us up when we least expect it.
So, what do a dinosaur-era fish, a seemingly cursed ancient army, and a 3,300-year-old sunken ship actually have in common? Well, the short answer is absolutely none of them were found on purpose. Today, we are unraveling exactly how history's greatest secrets were just stumbled upon by people who were out there looking for something else entirely. Let's get right into it.
All right, let's kick things off with our first mystery. For this one, we're traveling back to the year 2007. Archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley was on a highly specific mission out in the freezing, deep waters of Lake Michigan. He was using some really advanced sonar tech to scan the bottom of the lake, basically hunting for a lost modern shipwreck that had been missing for years. So to be clear, he was looking for a relatively recent piece of history.
But as he's monitoring the lake bed, instead of seeing the jagged debris of a modern shipwreck, this completely bizarre anomaly pops up on his screen. Dr. Hawley gears up in his scuba equipment and dives into these freezing depths to check it out. And I mean, just imagine the shock of this discovery. Down there on the perfectly flat, sandy bottom of the lake, he didn't find a ship at all. He found these massive, man-made stones arranged in a perfectly straight line extending for an entire mile, and it ended in this perfect circle with a deep trench. Naturally, the media caught wind of this and just went completely wild. They immediately started hyping it up as this mystical 10,000-year-old spiritual Stonehenge beneath the waves.
But Dr. Hawley? He knew better. He realized the real secret was actually in that straight line of stones, not just the circle. The mystery was finally fully solved a couple of years later, in 2009. That's when University of Michigan anthropologist John O'Shea published a paper detailing a virtually identical stone line found about 300 kilometers away in Lake Huron. He revealed that these were not religious monuments at all. In fact, they were incredibly practical tools known as drive lines, built thousands of years ago by ancient hunters.
Let's actually walk through exactly how this worked, because the ancient engineering here is just brilliant. So thousands of years ago, Native Americans hunted an animal called the caribou. Now, caribou have this very specific, kind of quirky instinct. They will naturally follow a straight line or path if they see one. Ancient hunters essentially exploited this by building this exact stone trap. First, that 1-mile straight stone line gently guided the moving herd. Second, the caribou were naturally funneled right into that perfect stone circle. Third, there was a deep trench at the end that trapped the animals so they couldn't run any further. And finally, hunters who were hiding behind the stones would strike. It was a brilliantly orchestrated ancient hunting strategy, and it was entirely accidentally found by a guy looking for a modern boat. Crazy, right?
Okay, fast forward to 2023, and our second mystery takes us away from a freezing American lake over to the intense environment of the Mediterranean Sea. A British oil company is out there scanning the seafloor, basically just searching for new oil and gas fields. Their ship is about 55 miles off the coast of Israel, and they've sent this super advanced robotic vehicle down a full mile deep into the ocean just to snap some pictures of the seafloor. At first, the engineers are just seeing what you'd expect: ordinary sand, some rocks. But suddenly, this incredibly strange mound appears on their screens. It's this massive pile of hundreds of half-buried clay pots and jugs. I mean, think about the sheer scale of this for a second. They're in the middle of a 1 million square mile ocean, a full mile underwater. Where on earth did hundreds of organized clay pots come from? They immediately realized, okay, this is definitely not a natural mound, and they called in the Israel Antiquities Authority to investigate.
When they sent a robotic camera back down for a closer look, the massive discovery hiding beneath that mound was finally revealed. Turns out, the shape of the mound actually outlined a 40-foot-long shipwreck that was completely buried underneath all those pots. And because these items were so incredibly fragile and buried so deep, they had to deploy a highly specialized robotic vehicle, one that was expertly designed for really delicate extraction just to safely bring a handful of these items up to the surface.
Now, the researchers were absolutely stunned to find that even after all this time underwater, there was actually still some material left inside the pots. They figured out that these ancient jars were essentially cargo containers, likely used to transport olive oil, agricultural products, or maybe wine across the sea. But you know what? The contents weren't even the most shocking part. The true revelation came when they carefully took these delicate jars into the lab.
They ran carbon dating tests on the pots, and the number that came back literally blew everyone's minds.
3,300 years old. Let that sink in. By pure, utter accident, while searching for modern fossil fuels, this oil company had just stumbled upon the absolute oldest deep-water shipwreck ever found in all of human history.
This discovery fundamentally shifts our understanding of maritime history. It completely proves that over 3 millennia ago, ancient sailors weren't just safely hugging the coastlines. The Mediterranean Sea is vast, and the waves out there can be incredibly dangerous. But this find shows us that these ancient people possessed highly advanced navigation tech and the engineering skills to build ships capable of surviving the extreme conditions of the deep, open ocean. It's truly magical to think about, isn't it?
Okay, moving on to mystery number 3. Let's jump way back in time to a cold morning in December 1938. Picture this, we're on the coast of South Africa. A local fisherman heads out for his typical daily catch, but when he pulls up his net, right there among his usual haul, there is this glowing blue, 5-foot-long creature just staring back at him. In his 30 years of fishing, he has never, ever seen anything like it. Frankly, it looks like it belongs on another planet entirely. So he brings it to some fish experts, and they quite literally couldn't believe their eyes. This fish is called the coelacanth. And to really grasp why this is so mind-bending, we have to look at the timeline of history. See, scientists already knew about the coelacanth from the 19th century, but only from fossils. Fossils that were found in the exact same rock layers as the T-Rex. It first appeared roughly 400 million years ago. Science had firmly, 100% concluded that when that massive asteroid hit the Earth 65 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs, well, the coelacanth was wiped out right along with them. So finding this thing alive and swimming in 1938 was a massive historic shock. It was quite literally a living fossil.
And when you look at how this creature operates, it really is like an alien. It's biologically linked to tetrapods. Those are creatures that can swim but also have the ability to walk on land. So instead of normal, delicate fish fins, it has these 4 fleshy, bone-filled fins that kind of look like little legs, and it moves them in the water like a galloping horse. It's also the only living creature with a jointed skull, which allows it to lift its upper jaw entirely to swallow huge prey. Plus, because it lives in the pitch black of the deep sea, it doesn't even use its eyes to hunt. It uses this weird rostral organ to detect faint electrical currents in the water. And to survive that crushing deep-sea pressure, an unbelievable 99% of its skull is completely filled with fat, leaving just 1% for its actual brain. Oh, and unlike most fish that lay eggs, the coelacanth incubates eggs inside its body and gives birth to live young. It is just an unbelievable survivor, caught totally by accident in a random fishing net.
Which brings us to our 4th and final mystery, arguably the most famous and perhaps the most tragic accidental discovery on our list. It's the year 1974 in a small village called Xi'an in China. The area is suffering from this severe, just absolutely devastating drought. Crops are dying everywhere, and the local farmers are quite literally just trying to survive. So, in a desperate attempt to find water for their fields, they decide to band together and dig a new well entirely by hand.
After 3 days of totally exhausting digging, they get about 15 feet down into the earth. Suddenly, farmer Yang Jiafa's shovel strikes something incredibly hard. He carefully brushes away the dirt and, just imagine the sheer terror of this moment. From out of the dark earth, 2 perfectly sculpted eyes are staring right back at him. It was a human head made of clay. Now he brought it back up to the village, but instead of celebrating this cool find, the villagers were absolutely terrified. You see, they firmly believed that digging up statues from the earth was a terrible omen that was basically guaranteed to bring bad luck.
Well, word got out. The Chinese government heard about the discovery, and they immediately took over the excavation. And guys, what they found beneath that humble farmer's field completely defied comprehension. They didn't just find 1 or 2 more statues. They unearthed an absolutely massive, sprawling subterranean complex containing over 8,000 uniquely crafted clay soldiers.
This was the legendary Terracotta Army, built for China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. This immortal army was placed there specifically to protect him in the afterlife. And the staggering craftsmanship of the ancient world is just on full display here. Think about this. Out of those 8,000-plus soldiers, every single statue has a completely unique face, a unique hairstyle, and a unique uniform. No 2 are exactly alike. They were even equipped with real, fully functioning brass weapons. It almost instantly became one of the most valuable and significant archaeological discoveries in the entire history of the world. But there is an incredibly somber end to this tale. Those villagers who thought the clay head was a bad omen, well, sadly, their fears actually came true. Because the discovery was so monumentally important to history, the government confiscated the land to build a massive museum right over the site. So the poor farmers who accidentally changed our understanding of history ultimately lost their homes and their land because of it.
When you step back and look at all of these together, from a brilliant caribou trap hiding under an American lake, to the oldest deep-water shipwreck, to a literal dinosaur-era fish caught in a random net, to an entire immortal army buried under a dry farm, it's wild to realize that so much of what we know about our past was only found by pure, blind luck. It really begs the ultimate question, doesn't it? If these world-changing secrets were only uncovered by complete accident, what else is waiting quietly, right beneath our feet, or hiding at the bottom of our oceans, just waiting for the next lucky strike? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep wondering, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.